They arrived just before midnight, headlights cutting through the rain, tires hissing against the slick asphalt. The emergency room doors hissed open as Denzel Washington half-carried his 10-year-old granddaughter in his arms. She was burning up. Her name was Maya. Chocolate skin, thick curls clinging to her forehead, and eyes glazed with fever. Her small fingers gripped his shirt, twitching now and then as her body trembled from whatever was ravaging her inside. "Help!" Denzel's voice cracked through the lobby. He wasn't shouting like a man trying to command. He was shouting like a grandfather on the edge of breaking. The triage nurse behind the counter didn't even look up. "Take a seat, sir. There's a wait." "There's no time," he said. "She needs help, now." A second nurse leaned over the desk. Young, white, glanced at the girl, then at Denzel. "Symptoms? Fever. Delirium. She collapsed 20 minutes ago." "Is she vaccinated?" the nurse asked. Denzel blinked. "She's 10. She had the flu shot." The nurse narrowed her eyes. "Any recent travel? Haiti? Africa?" Denzel's jaw clenched. "No. She hasn't left Atlanta." The nurse clicked something on her keyboard. "Take a seat. There are 6 empty beds right there," he said, pointing through the sliding glass door behind the waiting room. "Those are reserved for emergent tier patients." Denzel's voice dropped into a low, dangerous whisper. "My granddaughter is burning alive in my arms. What the hell do you think this is?" The nurse folded her arms. "Sir, do not raise your voice. There are protocols." He looked around. A white boy with a scraped knee was being ushered in. A middle-aged man with chest pain was already hooked up to a monitor. But Maya? Still in his arms. Still burning. Still invisible. Half an hour later, they were still sitting in the lobby. Maya had stopped shaking. She was just quiet now. Denzel gently pressed his hand to her cheek. Still hot. Too hot. A doctor walked past, clipboard in hand, and Denzel stood up. "Doctor. Please. Can you check on my granddaughter?" The man didn't even slow down. "I'm not her assigned attending." Denzel stepped in his path. "Then assign yourself." The doctor looked him up and down. "Security," he called behind him, like Denzel was a threat and not a desperate man. 2 hospital guards moved toward them. "Sir, we're going to need you to step outside." "She's 10. Denzel barked. "She's sick." But the guards didn't listen. Because the system wasn't designed to hear voices like his. Not when the skin in his arms was brown. Not when the address on her medical file said Southside. Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour. Maya whimpered in his arms. Her lips were dry. Her breathing, shallow. He wrapped his coat around her tighter. Then he pulled out his phone. He didn't call 911. He called his lawyer. The next morning, the story had already gone viral. Denzel Washington forced to wait 47 minutes with feverish granddaughter, ER blames triage policy. On talk radio, a conservative host barked. These people think fame gives them a pass. The hospital did nothing wrong. But on Black Twitter, the narrative was different. She had brown skin. That's all it took. At a press conference, the hospital released a statement. We deeply regret Mr. Washington's experience. However, all patients are subject to triage classification based on observable risk factors. We deny any discrimination occurred. But someone inside the hospital had seen enough. A nurse named Tanya Walker, 52 years old, with salt and pepper locks and 20 years of emergency room hell behind her, slid a manila folder across a table to a reporter that night. Inside, internal logs. Time-stamped footage. Audio from the intake room. On it, one line repeated from a nurse's mic'd batch. Just another ghetto kid with a flu. And another. Let's see if he throws a celebrity tantrum. The hospital board met behind closed doors the next morning. Blinds drawn. No recordings. No minutes. 12 men and women in suits sat around a mahogany table, each with a printed copy of the leaked nurse transcript and a headline that refused to die. She was left to burn, inside the ER where Denzel's granddaughter was ignored. At the head sat Charles Remick, hospital director. Gray-haired. Surgical. He read the room with the same precision he once used to dissect hearts. "This cannot go to court," he said. "If we let this become precedent, every angry parent with a camera becomes a liability." One board member cleared her throat. But the nurse, Tanya Walker, she was only trying to do the right thing. Remick's jaw tensed. Then make her regret it. That same hour, Tanya sat alone in her small kitchen on the south end of town. Her phone buzzed. Suspension notice. Indefinite. Pending review. She laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was expected. "I spoke," she muttered. "And now I'm silenced." Her husband, Raymond, laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We've been through worse." "Yeah," she said. But the worst didn't come with cameras and legal teams. Meanwhile, across town, Denzel sat beside Maya's bed at St. Gabriel's Children's Hospital, a private clinic he'd transferred her to overnight. It was bright, clean, and kind. The opposite of where they'd been. Maya lay quietly, hooked to an 4. Her fever had dropped, but she was still weak. The pediatrician, a Haitian woman named Dr. Lorraine Baptiste, approached with the scan results. Denzel stood before she even spoke. "It's not flu," she said gently. "It's acute viral myocarditis." He blinked. "That's... her heart is inflamed." The virus reached cardiac tissue. If she had stayed untreated for another 2 hours, she might have gone into failure. Denzel's face went blank. 2 hours. 47 minutes in the lobby. 10 more arguing with security. And she was almost gone. He sat down slowly, staring at his hands. That night, his lawyer, Richard Tolan, came by the hospital with 2 folders. One was thin. One was thick. "The thin one is your non-disclosure option," he said. "Settlement offer. The hospital will apologize. Quietly. You donate the payout to charity. Story dies in 2 weeks." Denzel didn't touch it. "The thick one?" he asked. Tolan nodded. "That's war. Formal lawsuit. Civil rights violations. Negligence. Discriminatory triage practices." Denzel looked at Maya, asleep, a child with her whole life stolen by strangers in a moment of indifference. "Open the thick one," he said. The next morning, the hospital made their move. Press release. Veteran nurse Tanya Walker terminated for leaking patient records and violating HIPAA protocol. Denzel slammed the printed statement on his kitchen counter. "She's the only one who did anything right." Tolan nodded grimly. "They're painting her as the villain. Hoping public trust shifts. Then we shift it back." 3 days later, Denzel appeared live on CBS Morning News. No press agent. No studio lights. Just a folding chair beside the hospital, a handheld mic, and Tanya seated next to him. He began simply. "I've played a lot of roles. Cops. Lawyers. Even a doctor or 2. But what I'm not, is a man who'll stay quiet when my granddaughter almost dies because someone decided her skin meant she could wait." He gestured to Tanya. This woman was the only one in that building who acted like Maya mattered. She's not a whistleblower. She's a nurse. A hero. And she deserves her job back. The host tried to pivot. "Some say you're using your celebrity to." Denzel cut in, voice calm but fierce. "If I wasn't famous, Maya might be dead. That's the problem." Within hours, Tanya's name was trending. So was hashtag no bed for her. And by sunset, over 250,000 signatures called for her reinstatement. The hospital issued a new statement. Ms. Walker's employment status remains under review. We are conducting an internal audit of ER protocols. But the audit was a stall. Behind closed doors, Remick barked to legal, find a way to discredit Washington. Drug test his kid. Background check the family. Whatever it takes. They were preparing a hit. Because Maya's life had exposed their lie. And the truth was far from finished. They didn't go after Denzel directly. They went after his son. His name was Jordan Washington, Maya's father. A teacher, quiet and kind. Too private for headlines. Too decent for scandal. But that didn't stop them. One morning, Denzel awoke to a whisper from his lawyer, Richard. They leaked a photo. What kind of photo? A doctored one. Richard slid a printed screenshot across the breakfast table, a blurry image of Jordan, supposedly holding a joint at a college party. His eyes red. His face angry. Caption, Washington's son in 2018 drug scandal. Hospital source claims child exposed to unsafe environment. It wasn't real. Jordan hadn't even been in the state that weekend. But it didn't matter. Because the headline was already out. Because the lie traveled faster than the apology. At the same time, inside Evergreen Medical, a quiet intern named Luis Caballero was watching the chaos unfold on his phone. His face was pale, fingers clenched tight. He'd been the one on night shift when Maya came in. He'd watched the nurses ignore the girl. He'd overheard one say, "Let her bake a little, he'll make more noise." And he knew where the real story lived. In the camera room. Luis slipped into the server room during lunch. He pulled the internal logs, downloaded the unedited security footage onto a flash drive, and slid it into a hollowed-out clipboard. Before he left, he scribbled 4 words on a sticky note. They knew. L.C. Then he made one call, not to a reporter. To Tanya Walker. By late afternoon, the wheels were turning. Denzel and Richard met Tanya in a quiet church basement, where they watched the raw footage frame by frame. There it was. Maya in her grandfather's arms, sweat glistening, barely conscious. A nurse rolling her eyes. A voice, clear as thunder, "That's Denzel. Let's wait. He'll make a scene." Denzel leaned back. "They used her suffering for entertainment," he said. Tanya nodded. "This video buries them." The next morning, CBS, MSNBC, and BBC all received the same encrypted file from an anonymous source. Evergreen ER footage, leaked by staff member. The headlines turned violent. Hospital sat on empty beds while 10-year-old struggled to breathe. Whistleblower reveals cruel mockery in Washington case. Denzel's granddaughter was a spectacle, not a patient. The hospital issued an emergency press briefing. Charles Remick, now clearly shaken, stood at the podium flanked by lawyers. "We are aware of the leaked video. We are investigating its authenticity. But let me be clear, privacy violations are criminal, and we will pursue charges." But it was too late. The truth was out. And the people had chosen their side. That evening, Denzel attended a community rally in Atlanta. Hundreds gathered, families, nurses, teachers. Maya, still fragile, stayed home, but Jordan stood behind his father. Denzel didn't read from paper. He spoke from fire. "My granddaughter was almost erased by a process disguised as policy. She wasn't seen as a child. She was processed like data. That isn't medicine. That's malpractice wrapped in bureaucracy." He turned to the crowd. "And when they couldn't beat the truth, they tried to smear my son. They tried to stain my family, because they think if they make us look dirty, their hands stay clean." Cheers rose. Someone yelled, "We believe you, Denzel." Another, "We are Maya." And then a shout from near the stage. Maya's name. Denzel's eyes darted. Jordan turned. A woman near the platform screamed, "The girl. She's seizing." Time slowed. Jordan ran. Denzel followed. Maya lay in her aunt's arms, lips blue, eyes fluttering. Paramedics rushed forward, but Denzel was already on his knees, holding her tiny hand. "No, baby," he whispered. "Not now. You hold on." They got her onto the stretcher. Oxygen mask. Monitors. As the ambulance doors slammed shut, a photographer caught the shot. Denzel Washington, eyes red, one hand against the glass, as his granddaughter faded behind the blur of flashing red lights. That image hit the front page of every paper the next morning. The caption read, "She should have been saved days ago." They stabilized her, barely. Maya lay in a pediatric ICU bed at St. Gabriel's, breathing through a ventilator, her chest rising with mechanical rhythm. A tangle of wires snaked across her arms. Her skin had turned pale. Her eyelids fluttered like butterfly wings against the storm. Denzel stood in the hallway with his hand pressed against the glass. He couldn't go in just yet. They were running more scans. Checking for swelling around her heart. Watching for clotting. Behind him, his son Jordan sat slumped in a chair, hands locked between his knees, eyes hollow. "I should have been there sooner," he whispered. Denzel didn't turn. "No," he said quietly. "You should never have had to be." Across town, the wheels of accountability finally creaked to life. The footage Luis leaked had forced the hand of the state. A subpoena was issued to Evergreen Medical's board. The hospital was now under federal review for racial bias in triage procedures. And inside the boardroom, the heat was rising. Charles Remick paced the carpet like a lion in a cage. "Which of you leaked the damn logs?" No one spoke. Then, from the far end of the table, one board member, Allison Brooks, 68, retired Army nurse and longtime hospital donor, looked up. Her voice was calm. "I didn't leak them. But I should have." Remick's face turned crimson. "You've just declared war on this institution." "No," she said. "You declared war the moment you let that child suffer because of where she was born and what shade her skin was." He slammed his palm on the table. "We'll crush them in litigation." Allison stood. "Not this time." At the hospital, Tanya Walker arrived with flowers for Maya. She wasn't supposed to be there, still officially suspended, but the staff waved her through. They respected her now. Revered her. In fear for the girl they all failed. Tanya stepped into Maya's room, gently placed the lilies near the window, then sat by her side. "I was a little girl like you once," she whispered. "I had fever dreams too. But you have something I didn't, baby. You have a world watching now." She placed her hand gently on Maya's. "You're not invisible anymore." Later that night, Denzel received a call from a national network. A major primetime interview offer. Full hour. No commercials. "Speak your truth," the producer said. "We want your story to lead the conversation." Then came the condition. "We'd like to focus on protocol failure and bureaucracy. We're worried the race angle will polarize the viewers." Denzel said nothing for a moment. Then, "You mean you want the pain but not the pattern?" No, the producer backtracked. "We just think it's best to emphasize medical error. Broaden the appeal." Denzel's voice was soft but unflinching. "Let me ask you something. If Maya had blonde hair and blue eyes, do you think she would have waited 47 minutes in that ER lobby?" Dead silence. He ended the call. The next morning, he called a press conference on the steps of Evergreen Medical. It was raining. Again. No podium. No staff. Just Denzel, Jordan, Tanya, and a framed photo of Maya, smiling, in better days, holding a drawing of a lion. Reporters huddled under umbrellas. Live streams buzzed. Questions fired from all directions. Denzel raised one hand. "I've been asked to soften my message," he said. "To call this a failure of policy. To say it was just about timing, just about stress, just about beds." He looked out across the microphones. "It wasn't." He held up the photo. This child was triaged last because her skin reminded someone of a neighborhood they were taught to fear. She was seen as expendable, as difficult, as drama waiting to happen. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. This isn't about me. It's not even about Maya anymore. It's about the countless other children, unnamed, unfilmed, who are told, in quiet, bureaucratic cruelty, "You can wait." The silence after his final word was louder than applause. The following day, Congresswoman Evelyn Monroe, chair of the Health Equity Committee, opened a formal inquiry. And then the call came. From Evergreen Medical's legal team. "We'd like to settle." But Denzel wasn't interested in settling. He wanted reform. He wanted public apologies. He wanted board resignations. He wanted Tanya reinstated and promoted. And more than anything, he wanted the phrase emergent priority criteria rewritten in every hospital in America. That night, Jordan sat by Maya's bed and read her a book she used to love. The Lion and the Firefly. His voice cracked once. Twice. Then steadied. Halfway through the story, she stirred. Her fingers twitched. And then, softly, barely above a breath, "Daddy?" He dropped the book. Called the nurse. Within minutes, Denzel stood beside her, tears falling freely now. Maya blinked up at him, weak but smiling. "You were loud," she whispered. He laughed. "You bet I was." 2 weeks later, Evergreen Medical's boardroom was empty. No more oak-paneled meetings behind closed doors. No more strategy sessions about optics. The state had concluded its investigation. The verdict was brutal. Systemic bias present. Deliberate deprioritization of minority patients confirmed. 3 board members resigned. 2 were charged with obstruction. And Charles Remick, the director who had said "make her regret it," was escorted out in handcuffs for evidence tampering. The public didn't cheer. They sighed. Because for once, just once, the hammer had fallen where it should. At St. Gabriel's, Maya was walking again. Slowly. Her steps were still wobbly, and her heart was still under watch. But she smiled now. Drew now. Spoke in full sentences. She especially liked asking the nurses if they'd been on TV lately. Denzel sat in the corner of her room with a legal pad full of scribbles. Policy revisions. Terms. Names. He was writing a bill. Not just a lawsuit. A legislative proposal. One that would change how triage happened in ERs across America. No more emergent criteria designed in shadows. No more quiet denials of dignity. And at the top of the draft, in bold letters, the Maya Washington Protection Act. The next morning, Tanya Walker was reinstated. No ceremony. No applause. Just a quiet handshake from the new interim director. But that evening, she arrived at Maya's room with a gift, a pair of scrubs. Child-sized. Bright purple. A name tag clipped to the chest. Nurse Maya, in training. Maya lit up. She wore them to bed that night. In Washington, D.C., Denzel stood before the Senate Health Committee with the bill in hand. He read its preamble out loud. To ensure equitable emergency care for all, regardless of race, background, zip code, or language. Then he said, "This isn't about a mistake. This is about a culture. The culture of wait and see. Wait and see if they get louder. Wait and see if they get sicker. Wait and see if someone with lighter skin walks through the door." He paused. My granddaughter didn't have time to wait. And she shouldn't have had to. The room was silent. Then one senator, a former ER nurse herself, nodded. "I'll co-sponsor it." Back home in Atlanta, they held a vigil outside Evergreen Medical. Not in anger. Not in protest. In memory. Hundreds came, mothers with strollers, grandfathers in suits, pastors, doctors, janitors. Every one of them had waited too long in a room that didn't see them. Candles flickered. and above them, a banner stretched across the front doors. You can't fix what you won't admit. A month later, Evergreen unveiled something else. A brand new pediatric triage room, decorated with murals of stars and lions. Equipped with advanced monitors, sensory lights, and trauma-trained staff. At the entrance, a plaque. The Maya Room. For every child who was told to wait. And beneath it, a single line. You were never invisible. On the day of the dedication, Maya stood at the microphone. She was nervous, so Denzel knelt beside her and whispered, "You don't have to be perfect. Just be true." She nodded. Then spoke. "My name is Maya. I got sick, and some people didn't help me. But a lot of people did. Like Nurse Tanya. And my daddy. And my grandpa." The crowd chuckled. She continued. "Now, if another kid gets sick, they won't have to wait. Because this room says, you matter. That's why it's here. And I'm glad I didn't stay quiet." Applause thundered. That night, Denzel sat alone on his porch, watching fireflies blink through the Georgia trees. The phone rang. It was Jordan. "She's asleep," he said. "Wearing those scrubs again." Denzel smiled. "She's already healing the world." Jordan paused. "Dad, thank you." Denzel looked out at the stars. "No," he said. "Thank her. Because she had done what courts, cameras, and even legends could not. She made the world stop waiting."